Radio X.
I'm very pleased to say that I have Yanis and Jimmy sat in front of me here to talk us through the whole album. Great to see you again.
You too.
And it's only 6 months or so. Beginning of March is when we last hooked up and went through part one. And you were explaining then how the whole of both of these albums were recorded in your own studio setup, produced by you, Yanis, in one great big creative marathon session. And so, you decided at the time that you had so much material and the best way to approach this was to split the two into two different things, but united. So, and we're getting to play the whole of the second part tonight. And I wondered now, with a bit of perspective, so it's a few months further down the line, you've toured these songs, or a lot of the songs on the first part already. You've had time to get used to what you had created. I wonder how you felt about part one now, with that little bit of perspective.
I think we feel great about it. I feel a warmth towards it. I think I think the thing that we feel great about is the way that we sequence the records. I think that there were obviously there were risks involved of doing this project in this way, and certainly keeping a lot of strong songs for part two meant that in some ways there was, we were putting out a record that required some faith on the part of the listener that there was going to be this second installment, but also hopefully that it would stand alone and be a complete coherent record, which I think it's done. And now that the kind of dust has settled on it, I think it's been the approach of just putting it out on its own has allowed those songs to really permeate into people's like listening habits, and it's allowed those songs to kind of get some oxygen and get a bit of sunlight and to have their time. And I think that now part two is kind of dropping at exactly the right time when it feels like the second installment should be coming. So feel good, and it was great playing the songs live over the past year. Like, a lot of them translated really well, and it's just made the experience of being in the band all the richer for the new material.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and how do you feel about part two now, which you've just given to the world? Are you kind of feeling excited about this, because it seems different in some ways, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we intended it to be different, right? It's like
and I think it's carrying the flame from the first album live. I think that's what we're kind of most excited about at the moment. Like, we've been rehearsing some of the songs and they're sounding really good quite quickly, and I think they're gonna like really bolster the live show.
Yeah. And it's interesting. How do you see the two albums in terms of the content and material? And
I see it in almost a narrative sense, where I really feel like the way that the records are sequenced, it's almost like chapters in a novel or episodes in a series. So the whole show starts with Moonlight on part one, or the whole experience, the journey. And as you track through the layers of the lyrics and the meaning on part one, you get to songs like Sunday and I'm Done With The World, and there's an ending there. The world is there's lots of flame imagery, and the world becomes scorched, and the vocals on the final track of part one are essentially defeated and kind of resigned. And then part two, starting with Red Desert, it's kind of reintroducing the listener to that landscape that is, you're introducing them to the wreckage, and the runner is like the character picking himself up, dusting himself off, and then trying to find a sense of purpose and having a sense of momentum to keep going. Yeah. And then that's sort of the trajectory that kicks off on the first part of part two.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a great analogy and a great way of describing it. And in many ways, the first half of part two is quite racy. It's quite page turning. Like you kind of find out what's going on, and there's a real momentum and movement to the sequence of songs.
Yeah, there's definitely like a restlessness to it and an energy to it. I think that in terms of a sequencing thing, because we've had the space over the two records, if it was one record, we wouldn't have put the runner into Wash Off, into Like Lightning, into Dreaming Of, probably. We would have
spaced them out a bit more, probably.
Yeah, but instead we could do something like that, because within the context of the two records, it works. And so it's been interesting getting to sequence it in a different way.
Yeah, exciting. So the runner, you've got to keep on running. It seems like a simple message to yourself.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be kind of a mantra to oneself. In that way that we all have those like internal dialogues with ourselves, and we're all faced with challenges internally. It's definitely meant to be taken on that level, but also I think within the context of the themes of the record, it's also about trying to find a sense of optimism or a sense of purpose when you're faced with these huge monolithic problems that we kind of are faced with in society. So I was excited by it working on dual level, which is visualized in the video. Really, we did this video where essentially I fight with a doppelganger like myself. We go through various sort of tussles. Eventually, I win against the darker form of myself. But then I'm faced with a huge fire that's so after the struggle with oneself, you're faced with the greater struggle that's outside. I think the director did a really good video of visualizing it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's really interesting hearing about this, because the way I've been hearing it too, listening to the two albums, is that in some ways those big subjects, those big topics that you addressed on part one, shift slightly, and it becomes much more personal on part two. It becomes more about the individual getting through this situation.
Yeah, I was, a lot of this stuff, like we weren't necessarily aware of it sometimes at the time. And I think that one thing that's been interesting generally on this project is seeing how things have slotted together and kind of intuitively, we followed our creative intuition, but it's formed this quite cogent story, and the meanings all linked together. And like with that in mind, I felt like from a lyrical perspective, part one is like somebody looking out and surveying the terrain and articulating the problems but the person singing, like myself, is static in that. And in part two, like you're right, it's more personal. It's about the person then moving and having a sense of movement through it, and you're now on the run. And there's like a twitchiness to it, and it's no longer about looking at your surroundings. It's about you being active, you know. So that's why the Runner and Wash Off and Like Lightning they're much more personal, and they have this drive to them.
Yeah, definitely. And Wash Off is the next track. So the runner's running, and he's facing adversity, but he's just got to get through it. I mean, that seems the simple way through it. Is that what it is? I mean, and
with the runner,
runner into Wash Off.
Oh yeah, in a way, yeah. Because I think also what's musically, the Wash Off is like, it's pacey. It's got all the guitars. It's kind of, it feels like a locomotive. I feel like when I listen to it, there's something train-like about it. So I guess responding, because the music pre-existed the lyrics on Wash Off, and it was when it came to writing the lyrics for that, I just felt like the lyrics should sort of marry with this sense of trying to get on the move and also escaping. So there's lyrics about like fleeing to Medellin and trying to shake off the shackles of the problems that have been following you, and also kind of maybe in a slightly naive way, that instinct where when you pick up the newspaper or you get online and you're reading about you're in contact with constant negativity, and you're reading about whatever it might be, whether it's Brexit or climate change or political upheaval, that really fundamentally there are times when you just need to get away from it. And so Wash Off is kind of trying to articulate that. It's like trying to wash off the bad news or shake off the flu, and trying to get to somewhere where things are better, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting because the runner has a great groove to it, and then it is as if you've shifted up a gear, and it starts to rock more. But the interesting thing about a Foals rocker is that it still has this kind of great groove to it, that you never go straight down the line and in a traditional rock sense. Does that seem realistic?
Yeah, I don't know if we can do the traditional rock thing.
No.
Maybe it's not really in our DNA, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We're conditioned to do it our way.
yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, what a brilliant thing. You've kind of created your own way of rocking in a Foals way, which is kind of mad. But it's true, and I love that. And in terms of, the guitars seem to take on a kind of more strident effect with the runner and wash off, in the way that you're using them. In some ways, in the same way as the focus has shifted, the focus of the guitars as a sound has shifted too, in that it's a bit more direct in what you're doing.
They're foregrounded on part 2, definitely. And that, I think, that's why this is its own kind of record. It has its own characteristic, and it's much more guitar driven, much more direct. I think with a song like Wash Off as well, there's like an element of us going back to our old like polyrhythmic African inspired guitar playing, and it's all spiky and staccato. And we've been rehearsing that one over the last few weeks, and that's going to be a fun one to play, definitely.
Yeah, it's like non-stop guitars from start to finish.
Yeah, fantastic. And when we hear solos on these songs, and we're going to hear quite a few solos on these songs, is there somebody who's stepping up? Is that Yanis?
Yeah, it's Yanis.
It's always,
I bring the cream to
Yeah.
the songs.
What's that vocal effect that you've got on your vocals on that? Because it sounds like you're really screaming, but at the same time it's really low in the mix, and it's kind of lost in the midst of the sound.
Yeah, I mean, I did quite a few different vocal takes for that one. The main vocal take is belted out quite hard, but we were running a lot of the vocals through an Echoplex, like an old 60s tape unit that has a kind of natural saturation on it, and then we're just fading in and out that effect as a kind of just to add a bit of spice to the song.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what's going on in Black Bull? Because it's really interesting that you've kind of made this comparison to a book or a series of books, because now I can't get out of that thought. Because this character, the struggle.
Right. So for me, I think that if Black Bull was like it feels like a Hemingway thing, for me, like a kind of like broken, unpleasant, masculine energy is in that song. And the lyrics are kind of, they're to be taken with a pinch of salt. It's kind of almost like poking fun or exposing like layers of unpleasant aspects of masculinity, and like delusions of grandeur and kind of pride. And when we wrote like the track, we were just jamming it, and it just instantly felt like a song that was kind of musically aggressive and kind of dumb in a way, but in a really gratifying way. But it just felt like a perfect piece of music to be able to stuff it full of, or for it to almost act like blotting paper for kind of negative masculine traits, and then to be able to embody that on stage but have it encapsulated there. So you just put a bottle top on it and you leave it on stage. I think that it was kind of a cathartic thing to just get to scream some of those lyrics.
Yeah, a release for everybody, for you and everybody else. And when I think of Black Bull, I think of that bull emblem used in Spain, and hence the Hemingway connection. But I guess you're linking it in a way to Mediterranean macho behaviour, possibly, Yanis, which you would relate to your Greek heritage.
Yeah, also British macho behaviour.
Yeah, there's plenty of that.
About Canastella, fish fillet, two parley anglais.
Genius. And it's really interesting that when you're, because it must have been that interesting when you're creating all of this music, this massive body of work that you've now created during this whole recording period for these 2 albums, trying to sift through it and work out what went where, and what when did songs come, like the songs for part 2, did they all emerge around the same time? Or?
Yeah, they were all at the same time. They were, like when we were writing and recording, we had no idea it would be 2 records at all.
Yeah.
We still thought we were going to do one really long one or just the normal like 10 track one.
Yeah.
And we just ended up recording all of them. And then when the idea of 2 records came out amongst us, we were like, yeah, fantastic. And then it was quite easy to structure in the beginning because we'd had like 2 songs which could finish a record, 2 openers. And then we moved the other ones around. But they're all from the same basket of eggs. Yeah.
So in terms of separation, say part 1 was a certain burst of creativity and part 2 was another?
I mean, in the studio, it was all literally would work on, say, Wash Off one day or Neptune one day, and then would work on In Degrees. So it was all at the same time. And it was just only in the latter stages where we realised actually there were kind of two different threads. And there were also songs that didn't work well together. So, for example, there's a song called Cafe d'Athens on part 1, and we just knew that could never go on the same album as a song like Black Bull. So there were things that we viewed as being problems, and that they were then solved by creating two records out of them. And I think it's allowed us also to show how dynamic the band can be without making a record where you lose coherence. So I feel like we've made 2 coherent records that show the different dimensions of the group.
Yeah, without having to leap around so much that people are going, what on earth is going on here? Foals are weird.
It'd just be exhausting, I think.
But it is interesting to know that all of them kind of all created at the same time, simultaneously. The idea being, say, if it's a painter, and you've got 10 canvases in front of you and you're kind of dashing from one to the other, or approaching one day and moving on to another the next day. But it is like that, isn't it? But somehow they're all being created at the same time. But according to mood and imagination, you work on one thing over another for a particular reason.
And there were periods in the recording process when we didn't know what we were going to finish. We thought maybe certain songs would fall away, or we thought, we'll just edit these out and we'll do a separate. We were kind of purposefully almost not thinking about the end product while we were working. Which was liberating, I think.
Fantastic. So Light Lightning is the next song, and this is quite a kind of stomper, and this has an element that I thought I would never hear on a Foals record, which is a kind of blues element.
Yeah.
Which is quite an interesting thing, because it's like you're deciding that actually we can embrace certain things that we might like, but we've kind of tried to move away from because they seem cliched and overused and tired. But somehow, actually, if we've enjoyed certain music in the past, we can bring that into what we're trying to create as well. You've allowed yourself.
It's one of probably the bluesiest.
Yeah, I think that comes from you, right?
The blues stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my mum used to always play Howling Wolf in the house, and I think there was a point at which, particularly with vocals, I think when I was finding my voice after Antidotes and after probably around Total Life, but into Holy Fire, I started to feel inspired by blues and gospel vocals, but it may not have seemed as apparent because obviously the music underneath was different. And this is a song, I guess, where we've just opened up the blues valve a bit more and allowed ourselves to just relish in the swampy stomp of it, like the earthquake stomp. And because obviously it's heavy as well. I mean, it's this one's one of the heaviest tracks I think we've ever written. So it felt like that kind of counterbalanced the bluesiness of it, and the production is obviously not bluesy. So
yeah, but it's a nice surprise. It's a different kind of thing to throw at us.
Yeah,
I think suddenly, this is a bit of a kind of blues holler, and they're stamping and clapping. And,
yeah.
And as you say, it lends itself to a heaviness because these riffs seem really crunchy and kind of angry.
Yeah.
In a way on this track. And what's going on for our protagonist that's running through this storyline then now?
So with the protagonist...
so what's going on with him?
I guess there's a paranoia in this one. There's lines about they're coming to get you and you need to look after yourself. And I think maybe there's some slight threads with some of the paranoia and exits as well, about that kind of feeling of having to hide and being watched. So it's kind of a mixture between the energy and Black Bull lyrically. There's a kind of there's a pride to it. There's a struttiness to it about I know how I'm going to survive. I know my way home. I've seen all that life has to throw at me. I've seen the sky collapse. I've seen the thunder collapse. I've seen all this stuff. But then there's an anxiety. There's a kind of there's an itchiness that's coming in, and maybe a feeling that not all will be well.
Yeah, because there's this kind of suggestion I could have been.
I could, yeah. So after Black Bull, where there's the kind of there's a kind of feeling of immortality in Black Bull, or that nothing could touch you, you're an untouchable creature, which is definitely also sometimes I think we and probably I definitely feel like that. Particularly after certain shows, you're full of this adrenaline where you just think, you know, it's almost unhealthy. You feel like untouchable, and so I guess like Light Lightning is the kind of is moving into the come down from that feeling a little bit where you were maybe untouchable, but not so much anymore. And actually, there's things that are chasing you on your heels.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky giving yourself every night in performance, in a way. No,
Yeah.
it's tough. And we're getting a little glimpse of that. And do you feel a similar way sometimes off stage, Jimmy? I mean, because Yanis, you give such a big performance.
Yeah, I think like I probably feel it slightly less because I don't sing.
Yeah,
And you know, I think like that direct communication with the audience every single night takes its toll, I think. But I think we all suffer a little bit afterwards when we certainly feel drained.
Yeah.
But that's probably because the shows are like an hour and a half long now, or longer.
They're all longer, yeah,
They're going to
they've
be
got
like
even
2
longer.
hours.
See, that's what you get when you survive. When you
And then you put
10
2
years
albums
down the
out.
line and you put 2 albums out in 1 year.
Yeah, you're asking for it.
Yeah, fantastic though. Those shows are amazing. It seems in a way, Dreaming Of is almost like a pause within this storyline that you've been unraveling for us, Yanis. In that, you know, things calm down a little for the protagonist.
Yeah.
It's a moment where they get to kind of, you know, assess or take stock.
Yeah, it's looking backward, definitely. Yeah, I'd say that you know, well, do you want to talk about this one? I mean,
I don't really know much about what the protagonist
no,
is up to.
I
But
mean,
you can talk about the musical aspect of it. You know.
Yeah, it was like I think I came up with the original riff.
Yeah.
like the first
the
riff.
pixie spidery one.
Spidery one. And I think this was actually one of the trickier ones to finalise in the studio and in the writing room. We went around the houses with it, and then kept kind of putting different elements into it and then taking them out, putting them back in. Yeah.
It was really poppy at the
Yeah.
start. It was probably like a song where I think we felt that it was super melodic, and as it went on, it got weirder. We kind of put in more edges and angles into it, and some of it was the production as well. I think there's like, you know, if you strip it back down to its core, it is kind of quite a simple pop song in a certain way. Yeah, and then with the lyrics, I don't know, I just found intuitively I just wanted to write about time past, and I wanted to look back to Oxford, and in terms of the protagonist, yeah, I guess it is somebody who's like stopped and then has the space to look back, and it's more personal, you know, it's definitely to do with personal relationships. But again, you know, the main lyric in the chorus is cutting and running, so it's still tying into that feeling of like of searching and needing to move. And I think that probably ties into just the fact that I feel quite restless as a person. And looking back at Oxford now, when we go back, it's layered with memories, not all of them positive, but a lot of them positive. And so the image for that is just the spires. That's why it's looking back at the spires. So it's a strange thing going back to Oxford these days, I find. Like, and you're forced to confront the fact that we've been a band for 12 years, and that the guys that we were when we all lived in a house together with carpet beetles, and we were drawing on the walls, and we were imagining Total Life Forever. It's like, that's actually a decade ago now. That's kind of freaky.
It's like going into our local pub and there's a new set of kids sitting on like the regulars bar stools.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, what ties you to Oxford now? I mean, do you still have
Family,
connections
yeah.
there? So you still have family there. So you're drawn back there regardless. You know.
Yeah, you have to. I have to go. Yeah, we all go back. We have. Yeah, I have to go back.
So and do you tie that in together? I mean, do you go back at the same time? I heard this story once about
the opposite.
about Arctic Monkeys going back to Sheffield one Christmas, you know, and there's this picture of like all of the band in a pub, but just a local pub that they would go to from whatever age.
Yeah.
And they just happened to be going there because they'd all gone home for Christmas, and then it's like, oh, you know, this is your local family kind of place that you would go to, but you're also Arctic Monkeys. That's something the whole pub is looking at you.
Yeah.
Not just because, great to see you again, but because you're this kind of bigger thing somehow now.
Yeah.
No. Do you have that kind of experience at all?
I definitely feel like Oxford's smaller than I remember it to be. You know, I feel like I don't feel that I can hide personally in Oxford, but we've had some good times meeting up at pub. We meet up at the pub at Christmas.
I think we should go back to the King's Arms.
Yeah, don't tell.
Christmas.
Yeah,
The Weatherspoons on the High Street.
Lamb and flag. Yeah. No, we had great times in pubs in Oxford, and
Damn, well, not anymore, I guess. It's ruined it.
yeah.
I'm sure you can once more in the fullness of time. So the next two tracks I'm going to play side by side.
Yeah,
because
cool.
The first of those, Ikaria, is a kind of instrumental, like a piano atmosphere or something, and it leads into 10,000 feet. And so they have to be played together, really.
They do, yeah.
And
then the start on vinyl, Ikaria is the start of the second side on vinyl. So it's meant to kind of, break up and also break up the album, and also, because side one of part two, I keep it's so intense. Yeah. We just thought, actually you need to have a moment's breath. And also, I think that the second side of part two now kind of goes into a different territory. And Icaria's where in mythology they said that Icarus landed after his wings melted from flying too close to the sun. So it kind of links into the lyrics of 10,000 feet.
Right.
And is a good symbol for other things, like for the fact that in society we think that we can fix everything to technology, but it might actually be our undoing.
Interesting. So 10,000 feet, we are falling then.
Yeah.
That society is falling. Yeah. Possibly. No, that's the suggestion. Yeah. In that song.
And I was just interested in these next few songs from 10,000 feet to the end become more the themes are more to do with like mortality and changing states. And in 10,000 feet, there's lines about like going from carbon to diamond or carbon to ash, and like the verses feel like they're in the sky because like Jimmy wrote the music for the verse, and it was separate from the chorus for a while. And there's something like light, and I mean, it just, to me, it feels like a wide open sky in the verse, but then you come crashing into something that's earthy, and there's impact in the chorus. Not to tell too long a story, but one of the lyrics in 10,000 feet is, what interested me was there's an architect in Mexico called Barajan that died, and a rich man bought his archives as an engagement present for his fiancée. And then there was a public outcry, and people wanted the archives to be public. So the deal that they cut was that the family would release some of the architect's ashes to be turned into a diamond engagement ring, and the man would release the archives back to the public. So this architect has been turned into a diamond ring, and I just found that beautiful, bizarre, and also quite ghoulish at the same time. And there's a line there about becoming a wedding ring.
Wow. I mean, that sounds amazing. I didn't even know you could do that kind of thing. I thought alchemy, that nature was...
There are websites out there.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing story. I mean, it's interesting, the music to 10,000 feet, that you're talking about, because to me, it sounds as if it's ascending, but it also sounds as if it's descending too. So that, these riffs, these spiraling riffs, kind of taking us up, and the song kind of builds up. But you listen to the words, and you're also thinking, "Oh no!" But we could be falling at the same time. And it's quite an achievement I think, to create that effect. Because that duplicity of what's going on lyrically is well reflected in the music. Now, did you respond to the music to get to these words?
Yeah, but like most of this stuff is just intuitive. It's only after the fact that we kind of find a way of verbalizing it. Like the way that we're talking about the whole album now is never the way we talk about it at the time. I think that there's an internal process that goes on when I'm writing the lyrics, where it's just to do with responding to something on an emotional level, and it's only kind of after the fact where you get to express it and articulate in that way. But yeah, definitely it's a visual thing, like we had the song musically, and it just seemed to fit that it should be about somebody falling from the sky and changing states, and the themes that we've just talked about.
As Yanis was explaining, that they don't do when they're creating these songs, these bodies of work, they're not analysing them and trying to come to terms with how they've managed to achieve this. And that's one of the great things, is that you don't analyze it at the time. But I mean, I get why it's maybe a gift that keeps on giving, is that it keeps explaining itself to you as you perform the song each night, as you have to talk about them or think about them with other people. No, it's quite interesting. And in the same way that both listeners and fans, we bring our own experiences and our own meanings to art, don't we? And in some ways, the meanings that we bring to it help create the meaning of any art.
Yeah, totally.
Which is fascinating. But also because everything does seem so well interconnected. So from Ikaria to 10,000 feet to Into the Surf, if Icarus, if we or whoever it is have flown high and then crashed down and we're now in the sea, it's so well put together. No, it's like you've actually thought about this.
Yeah.
I mean, an element of thought went into it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
But there's much more going on Into the Surf as well.
Yeah, Into the Surf is like a song that Jimmy had a loop that was this really tightly wound thing. It was like these piano chords and it had the wailing guitars over it. But it was like, I remember just thinking about it, it's like it'd been around for a while, it's like if we can just pull out, make an amazing song. And then we started working on it. I mean, for me, it's one of my favourite songs we've ever done, I think. And yeah.
The lyrics, you mentioned Jasmine in there, and that's just the very word kind of evokes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Somehow? Because obviously it's associated with smell as well.
Yeah.
And by using that word, I presume you're trying to create that idea that you can get intoxicated through through a plant.
Yeah, I think that when we were working on it, again, it was just music at the beginning, and I had some vocals, but it just felt really visual. I just felt like I could see exactly where it was set, and for me, it was set in a kind of Mediterranean island at night, and there is night jasmine definitely in Greece, and you smell it at night, and it's like it's transporting, and just because there's something bittersweet in the music, and there's this kind of longing and melancholic quality to it. I just thought it'd be fitting to have this sense of it being a love song about two people not being able to re-meet. And because it was kind of set in Greece in my mind, there are songs about dying far away from home and never being able to return from a voyage. So I wanted to tap into that. And then because like these last few songs are kind of dealing with death, and so it's symbolic of death, basically not returning home and wanting your lover essentially to act out these rituals for you if you can't return. So putting a garland in the sea and wrapping jasmine around your bones if you're returned home. You're repatriated after death. And I guess it's probably, not to open out too much, but it's probably something that as I've got older, I've thought about things like, about my mortality, or what will last afterwards, and like because maybe also because we tour a lot, so I think it's a preoccupation. Being like, I don't want to die in this godforsaken part of the world. I want to end my days where I want to end my days. So I say that as a 33-year-old, but I mean, anyway, it's increases the thoughts of that kind of stuff to increase. So yeah, I feel like that, and hopefully that comes across perfectly. I feel like people understand this song from the stuff that I've read. People understand the emotion of it.
So, in terms of performing these songs and performing the two albums, have you considered the idea of doing a double album?
Yeah.
Live show where it's
we have actually. Yeah, I think we're probably going to do it. Not sure when or where.
I think it'd be awesome.
How? But I think that's actually an achievable goal. Because they're all playable live, pretty much.
Yeah.
We've already done it for the first one.
Yeah, we've done the whole of part one.
Yeah. So there's no reason why we can't do both.
Yeah. And put them together.
And put them next to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'd actually only be like it'd be like an hour 20. I mean, it wouldn't be longer than a normal show, so we could do both records and then come out and play
slam and encore.
Yeah, do some slammers.
The golden oldies.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that sounds like an amazing night of entertainment. I think people would love that. Because listening to you tell me about the record, I mean, this could be your equivalent of The Wall by Pink Floyd or something. No, there's so much going on, and there's so much about story and narrative and some kind of force that's running through the whole of the journey from the very first album through to the end of this. And the video treatments that you've already done for some of these songs. This could be. It could be a film. It could be an amazing stage show. I mean, would you like to go into that territory?
I think we'd love to. I think we've always talked about doing something.
Do you like The Wall?
Different. It's not my favourite. No. But I don't think I've even listened.
It's not necessarily mine, but for certain people, and just in terms of
the concept's great.
Yeah.
I think we've always been interested in doing something. Like we've always been interested in doing something with dance, or with like for a while the London Contemporary Orchestra.
Yeah, I think
there's potential, especially with the two records, to do something really special. It will take a lot of time. But
also, I think because we've just got a tour part 2, but if we have some energy, for some fuel left in the tank at the end, it would be awesome to just do a one-nighter. We could do we'll talk about it after.
Yeah, fascinating. And I guess, you're going to give yourselves a break now. I mean, you're going to continue to perform this, but, you've done so much work in a relatively short period of time that, the idea of recording again and working on something, I mean, is that, do you have any calendar in mind with regard to that?
Well, it's turned out great, actually. So we've just done, obviously, like quite an intense tour. And then the record's coming out this month. And or maybe it's already come out.
The record's just come out.
The record has just come out. And we're promoting it, and then it all stops at the beginning of November, and we have up until basically March off. Yeah. We'll be rehearsing again in February, and then we'll do it all again. So I think we've definitely got enough time to recharge our batteries. I'm starting to feel the sort of tinkling of new music, maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah, your bell's tinkling.
My bells have started to... my wind chimes are chiming once again. A little bit, but I'm sure, in the boredom that will come with 3 months off, we'll probably start doing little bits and bobs. And whether it's Foals related, I don't know, but, the ball will be set in motion again. And I think, bizarrely, it's worked out quite well.
Yeah.
Because we were quite worried about like how on earth are we going to release and tour 2 records without overdoing it or overexposing ourselves or all that sort of stuff. And I think actually it's going to work out pretty well.
Fantastic. And so you close Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost Part 2 with the epic Neptune, 10 minutes long.
It's a beast.
It is a beast.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that with this record, there's such a lot of upbeat fury and momentum to the first half of this album. The last few tracks kind of wind things down, and Neptune does wind things down as well. I mean, when I first thought of you doing a 10-minute number, I thought, they're going to be explosive, and it'll be dancing, and and you do those kind of things live, and I'm sure you've done them in the rehearsal studio too. But you don't necessarily do that with Neptune. You go a different kind of route.
Yeah. It kind of did it itself. Just like the fact that it ended up being this 10-minute long thing, and structure-wise as well. It's just from jamming, actually in the studio, which we've never really done before, never really recorded before. And there was like a fragility to the long middle bit, the kind of wandering middle bit, that felt so perfect. So we just left it in. Basically, there's very little editing.
Yeah.
And so those all the playing, those solos.
That was all the live take, and then we just added some BVs and we added those synths.
Yeah, some synths.
And that was it. But we didn't edit. We didn't like retake stuff. Edwin tried to is Edwin playing bass on Neptune, and he tried to do a different take of bass, and he wasn't allowed.
Yeah,
because it's perfect the way it is.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you say, Jimmy, that this isn't the normal working routine for Foals. This is because in some ways, I often think that you could be a band who would go in a room, play together, because you play together so brilliantly, and when you go and see a live show, it's kinetic and there's such a chemistry between you all, and it's explosive. And I think that in my little imagination, that this is Foals. This is what you do.
We do that a lot when we're recording, but it usually moves away from the live version eventually. I think like what I'm talking about, it gets edited, and the fact that we just sort of on the spot that's the 10 minutes that everybody hears is the 10 minutes that happen in the studio, and it's sort of impossible to recreate again. And it was like we just realised we had something quite special and unusual for us. And then obviously we were like, what on earth are we going to do with a 10-minute song on like a single album like we thought it was going to be? And then when the double album thing came out, we were like, well, fantastic.
Yeah.
We can actually just release it.
Yeah, and I think it's a mark of your own self-knowledge to know that it was so special that it should be kept as a whole and should be released for people to hear, because it is a rare thing, from what you're saying.
It also justified to us the whole, one of the big aims about the way that we approached this period of recording and writing was that we went into the studio far earlier than normal because we wanted to try and capture these elusive moments of like discovery. And normally when most bands, and certainly with us, when you go into a studio, you go in with relatively fixed songs and it becomes a kind of a job of work. You go in and you record the record, and obviously you try and have fun, you experiment a bit, but essentially there are known coordinates. And with this whole album, we wanted to try and capture these things that up until then we'd only ever had on phone recordings, or these moments of magic that happen pre-studio. So us capturing this bit in Neptune kind of justified the whole schlep of recording the way that we did, where we were sifting through hours of audio, and we were recording earlier. We were recording prematurely in a way, but in order to capture these kind of things, and we managed to do it with Neptune, so it was cool.
Fantastic. And in terms of the lyrics that you wrote for this afterwards?
So these are some of my favourite lyrics, I think, that I've written. I think that what I like about it, and I like about it being at the end of the record, is it harks back to like this imagery of England. I liked getting to sing the word England in the song. I don't know why, but I think it harks back to the foxes and some of the landscape that's in part one. And in this, it's about leaving that landscape. You're leaving the white wards of England, and you're leaving the crows and the bleak metaphors of these birds that are in some ways like, looking out for carrion and stuff. And I wanted that to kind of be symbolic of the dark time that Britain's going through, but also, just like the world is kind of bleak. And then I go to Greece in the song, and then even that isn't kind of a refuge. And then it's about, again, it's kind of about departing and leaving the earth, basically. That's kind of what it's about. And there's one line also about, in the same way that I got interested in the diamond and being turned into a diamond, about people's social media profiles existing long after death, and how they become these kind of digital mausoleums to people. And there's like some lines about that. So it's me being preoccupied with death and trying to say, like, at the end of this huge long journey of these two records, essentially the ultimate voyage is the one ahead, whether that's going to space, going to Neptune and trying to find sanctuary there, or you just go into the ether.
Yeah, fantastic. And it does seem to chime somehow with my thoughts of epic book trilogies and Lord of the Rings, or how all the elves leave Middle Earth. And it sounds daft mentioning this in an interview, but I'm just recently read the Earthsea.
Ursula Le Guin.
Yeah, which is absolutely fascinating. And so I'm kind of lost in this fantasy world a little bit. And this kind of works, the way we've been talking about it seems to link in. And obviously, as I was saying, we bring a lot of our own selves to any interpretation of art. But I hate to project onto it, but it does seem kind of fitting in a way.
Yeah, it is. I see it sometimes as like it being like an out-of-body experience. It's like you're there's, it's describing the rusted homes and these abandoned, and like the world is one that you're abandoning, basically. You're leaving it, and you're leaving the wreckage below, and that's the stuff that's been described up until then, and then you're kind of just going off. And then the jam section is kind of, that's like you going out into the nebula.
Yeah. Then there's the voyage, setting sail. Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure, thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to see you twice in 1 year.
Yeah.
The two big, long interviews, parts 1 and part 2. What an exciting time to have these records emerge and reflect our times as well. So thanks again for coming in and sharing all the background and insight. Very much appreciated.
Radio X.